So I'd been there a long time. I'd seen so many different regimes go, different presidents go, different, we were a cable network. Then we were, purchased by NBC Universal. So a female executive pulled me aside in a closed door meeting and just said, you should know, right? You should know that you're severely underpaid.
All I see is blessings on blessings, yeah. I see the blessings coming our way, our way, our way.
We are talking to the one, the only, Catt Sadler is in the house.
Lizzy!
Welcome to the Cool Mom Code podcast.
Oh, this is so fun. This studio, you're so legit, Lizzy.
Look, I am excited. Me. Listen, when I came to your podcast studio, okay, it felt so at home because it is at your home,
literally,
which is a benefit because I swear you could just kind of like walk 3 steps and you're just in your podcast studio.
Yes.
So that's
by design.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
No.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
No. I just feel privileged, honored to be here now in your space because we had so much fun. And that was such a great conversation. And we'd never really met and like exchanged.
No, but so many mutual people that we know. Mm-hmm. And dude, your podcast, whatever this little chunk was, it went crazy.
I wondered if we were going to be talking about that. You went viral.
It went crazy.
You went viral.
Dude,
we went viral.
Girl, what was that?
I'm dying to know your thoughts about that because, this is for everybody listening. This was just, a clip, an excerpt of our hour-long conversation where I asked you, are your kids picky eaters?
Right.
And then you started sharing your house rules, basically, of how it works at dinner time.
You eat what you eat.
Yeah.
You eat what you eat and you don't complain. Like, that's it.
And boy, did you start a conversation. Everybody had something to say.
Everyone had something to say. It was quite amazing. I think I was surprised that people had such varying opinions on that one kind of simple topic to me. And when you asked it was a simple question. You were like, are your kids picky eaters?
Yeah.
Like it was nothing
like... It was a follow-up to you being an amazing
scandalous.
cook.
Like
it was like, by the way.
It was like, hey, just questioning, just wondering, know. And I was just like, wow, that was wild to me. You never really know what people are going to relate to and what they're going to feel strong opinions about. Yeah. But that was something they really came blazing.
Yeah, they came blazing. Everybody had such strong convictions. I mean, about setting your kids up for a lifetime of like despair or agony or food issues or, everybody else is like clapping like, okay, I hear my black mom over here. That's how it's done.
That's what we do. Right? That's like, this is how my mama did it. This is how my grandma did it.
And why are we treating kids like snowflakes? And like, who's got time to make 17 different meals?
There was a couple of things where I did when I read through a couple of the comments and I didn't have a chance to read through all of them. But a couple of them I was like, okay, I do understand. Dietary issues, which we weren't talking about and we didn't discuss. Right. So dietary issues, I definitely understand when a child can't eat something and then you have to pivot and make different things for different children.
Because of course you would
do
that.
Or allergies or things like that. So yes, that I definitely understand that can be on the table. But when it comes to just like eating meals and whether my meals are going to be super different from their meals and each child's meals are going to be different, nah. I was like, get out of here. Y'all wildin'. Get out of here.
Did I tell you when we had that conversation that's my partner, Greg, has 4 kids.
That's right.
And 3 of them are under 10. And he does that. And I am constantly going, dude, how long are you going to be a short order cook? He's like, so what does everybody want tonight? Taking orders. Like he does have the time, I will say. And it's cute because he's a dad and he loves cooking.
Right.
And so he takes great pride in that. Like that's his way to connect with the kids. But I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm literally like, you're creating like a beast of a situation that you're not going to be able to keep up forever.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't think about the long-term effects of it. I think of, hey, right now, what am I capable to do to best serve you all, to best serve the children who I have chosen to have. I have chosen for you all to live in my house and for me to love you endlessly. And so my thought process is just always, hey, what am I able to do? How do I get the best nutritious meal in front of you without having to go grab fast food or having to do this or that or like cut corners or whatever it is, right? I enjoy cooking. I enjoy making meals for my family, but I also know my limitations. I can't on a weeknight make 5 different meals for all 5 of us. So what can we do? So that's kind of the approach I take to it. But it was interesting because people were like, 15 years from now, this, and you're going to have them feeling like they don't know how to. I was like, what?
I know. It's too much.
What?
It's like, let's bring it back to the birthday. Like, it's like as if you don't have enough to do. And
I
you
know.
love your children. You are
love them.
feeding your children.
Of
I
course,
love when
I know, that was
I
so
love when you're
amazing.
like, I put it on a plate
I know.
and they are welcome to eat it, but
That's
they
right.
don't have to. But
That's
it's
right.
like today
It's
you've
a
got
choice.
how many business
I know.
things
It's
to
like
do?
I have,
You've got-
several things to
Come
do. So
on.
back to the weird. So it's my son's birthday.
Yeah.
I was asking Kat because she's the perfect person to ask because she is the epitome of working woman, mother. We're going to get into it, but I was asking Kat some of her opinions on how do we choose between work obligations, personal life. When are things just like an absolute no? And when are things like, okay, I'm going to give and take a little bit here.
Yeah. Oh gosh. You say I'm the perfect person to ask. It's funny. I will say the job doesn't seem to end ever because my kids are now 18 and 22.
That's right.
And literally on the way here, I'm just, because my son lives in the area, I was like, I'm in the neighborhood. Should I come over and see you? And he's like, answers the phone. Like he can't breathe. He's got a cold. He's like, I'm sick. And I was like, oh no.
I thought you were going to say he was sleeping.
No, thank
okay,
God.
yeah.
That's a different day, trust me. Like, why are you answering your phone? Get up. But no, and he's sick. So I'm like, okay, I was like, are you taking vitamin C? Have you And he's like, no, just like clueless. I'm like, this is just too
Mom mode
funny
kicks
that
in.
it just never, the job doesn't ever seem to end, but I also love it. Like part of me is like, oh good, I get to go see him and I'm going to go get some soup for him and I'm going to get some vitamin C and vitamins and all that stuff. But as far as the balance and picking and choosing, it's interesting. I remember at the height of my busyness when I was on E and I was doing the TV grind for 10 plus years and my kids were young. I remember that feeling very vividly of like the tug, the pull, the doctor's appointments, the drop-offs, the things I was missing by being away from work. And when you work for yourself, it's one thing, but when you work for a corporation, that's a whole other bag of worms that you don't really have the choice, right? Like how at least, if you are working for yourself, you have the freedom to maybe design your schedule a certain kind of way and to even say no at all.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can pick and choose.
Some of the times I didn't really have a choice, but I remember consciously always thinking the way I kind of reconciled being a working mother away from home and having 2 kids was that like, I wanted to be present at all times. Like if I am not going to physically be with you and if my job does take me to like work on nights and weekends, or maybe it's halfway around the globe on assignment or whatever it was, I would try my best to be at work. Now, when I was with my kids, I was really present and that's easier said than done. But I even got a tattoo about it. I think we talked about this tattoo on my podcast.
Wow.
And it was my reminder to be in the moment. So the best I could do at the time was to be there, be with my kids, be on the floor, put the phone away. And so I think I was very cognizant of that. And that seemed to help me get through my days and not feel a sense of guilt and not feel like I was spiraling out of control with all the demands,
Yeah, that's a hard one though. I will say, it's something that I strive to be just present in the moment. It's funny. Someone asked me recently, they said, what are you going into 2024 with? And I said, I want to be as present as possible in every moment that I am in, right? Whether that's with children, whether it's at work, whether it's with girlfriends, whatever it is, I want to be present in that moment. But it's a very difficult thing to do because, like you said, especially when you are running your own business or on a show, right? These things that are now a part of my life, it's like you're constantly getting pulled from whatever direction. Hey, answer this question. Hey, what do we need to do here? Hey, is this happening? Hey, why didn't this get done? It's all these things. And so it's hard because you're constantly attached to that phone.
Do you meditate at all?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I started meditation when my mom passed because for me, I felt like it was a really great way for me to tap into a space that I was constantly pushing down. Yeah.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
I was like
Is that
constantly
helping you?
Yeah, it helps me a lot, I think.
I feel like if you can, and I don't do it religiously at all.
Yeah,
but
what's your things?
I dip in and out of meditation. I love writing. I love kind of like, I can feel when I'm getting less centered. And so when I need to be, I go to the pen and paper, you know, that old fashioned thing where I'm just like writing down how I want to feel, what I want to manifest, quieting my world a little bit. That does seem to help me feel more grounded. So when all those things
free
come.
write? Do you ever just free write? When I used to act, they used to say one of the exercises, wake up in the morning, first thing you do, don't think, just write.
Ooh, no.
Just free write. No matter what the words come, no matter, it could not make sense. It could make sense. It could just whatever.
Yeah.
Just free write, just to get thoughts out. And sometimes I'll do that just to free whatever's like being blocked.
I love that.
Just whatever it is. Shoes, green, orange, blue, sky, carpet. I feel like I'm going to fly. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like whatever
it just like
it
makes
is.
you feel less heavy kind of?
Yeah, less heavy. And then at some point you'll see there's a stream of consciousness that comes, but you don't know how or why you got there. It's interesting. But if you like to write, I always
do.
find.
And don't you find the mornings, and I read this somewhere, like this is scientifically proven, like that we are our most creative selves in the morning after rest, you know?
You know, it's funny though, as a creative person, I feel like I am a night owl. I feel like my creativity comes at night. But maybe there's something I've heard music people say that after a certain point, like after like 3 a.m. or something like that, and as the world quiets or as like, I don't know, you know what I mean?
That could be astrology. What
could
sign are you?
I don't know. Listen, I don't think it's real, but listen, you don't know. You follow your body. I don't know. You're creative when you're creative. But yes, I think maybe after rest.
Yes.
Okay, I want to get into this because we can talk about all the things and the accomplishments and what you've done. I want to kind of start where we start, right? Where you started. So you're from Indiana, born and raised Indiana.
Born and raised, yeah.
And how did you find yourself in LA, of all places?
I put myself here, girl.
I'm saying.
I didn't find myself. I put myself. You know what
Tell
I
me
mean?
about it.
Okay.
Yes.
I always say I'll try to make a long story short, but I was that girl in Indiana, had never been to California, New York, never been to the coast, very much Midwest, landlocked, no one in entertainment, no one in the biz per se.
I know a little bit about that.
Yes, yes, you
Michigan
do.
girl.
My neighbor, yeah, we grew up similarly, and I was the girl interested in theater, and I was in all the plays and musicals, and I was always creating, and I was like directing my cousins and all this make-believe stuff. And so I was a bit of a performer for sure. That was in my blood. And then I got to college at Indiana University, and
Oh, so college too in Indiana. So you were there.
I was there.
That was home. Okay.
I mean, and by the way, it was 20 minutes down the road.
Wow.
So my little itty bitty small town of Martinsville, Indiana University, Hoosiers, was 20 minutes down the road, but it was like, it felt like going to the other side of the world. Because for Indiana, this was the most international zip code. This is where people from all over the world came to study. This is where college for me completely opened my eyes to what was possible.
Even 20 minutes down the road?
20 minutes down the road.
Wow.
My son is there today studying.
Wow.
Like, that's what's crazy, because he's now been born and raised in LA. And like, you know, I thought that would be the last place he'd want to go. But it really is, it's such a charmed school. I am always like talking about it. But it's a special place that isn't really defined by being in Indiana, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, well, hold on. I was in a band at the time. I'm not.
What was the name of the band?
Oh, God. The Gypsies.
The Gypsies?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like an all-girl band. I was backup singer. I was not the lead singer. But I was trying to decide, like, like every young 20-something, like, what am I doing with my life? What is my purpose? And I knew I loved the arts, but I also loved telling stories, and I loved asking people questions, and I loved just the exploration of the human spirit. Like, really, I mean, I know the words now. I didn't know the words then, but I was like that girl, always asking people questions. And so,
and you knew that at that age.
I did. I mean, because we got to go way back, because, you know,
yeah.
I'm 49 as we record this podcast. And back then it was like the home recorder. It was like the home video camera, but that was like what I did for fun. I was like, oh, get over here. Let me ask you questions. What do you want to do with your life? You know, I was like the Barbara Walters in the making.
I love that.
And, you know, and a fan of Oprah and a fan of Katie Couric and a fan of Diane Sawyer. So I was like,
those were your people.
Those are my people.
So it wasn't like the actors or actresses.
It was a bit of both.
It was, okay.
It was a bit of both, but my very traditional grandmother, Frida, I remember when I was like declaring my major, I think my dream, if I was super honest, was to be an actress. But where I came from, and at that time, I think maybe they were self-imposed limitations, but I was like, well, I'll never do that. That's an impossibility. Like, you know, I was obsessed with film and Audrey Hepburn and you know, the movies and going to the cinema. But I thought, there is a TV anchor in my state. There is a woman on the news. Maybe I can do that.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I shaped it. And my grandmother was like, I don't know, Kathy, because Kathy is what I used to go by. I don't know, Kathy, like that seems like drama, because I was going to be a theater major. She's like, I don't know if that's a very smart path for you, you know? And I was like, well, you probably got a point. So then I declared broadcast journalism as my major, and I studied that. So, and then I got the bug. So the minute I had a mic in my hand, the minute, you know, I was doing projects for school, that turned into a local internship at the local TV station. And then a year later, I mean, this is, again, I'll try to make it quick, but I was, quote unquote, discovered by an agent in New York who saw me on TV at 21.
Wow.
Who had just been passing through and was like, I had been on TV like two times.
Passing through Indiana.
Yeah. Going out to like discover young reporters.
I mean, it
on-air
sounds
talent.
like you were discovered like supermodels get discovered.
I
was walking down the beach in Brazil, and all of a sudden
I was at the mall.
There you go. Yeah, I was at the mall at Abercrombie, and there you go.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's fascinating because that's interesting to me. We always identified, and I think that was maybe the time of life at that time too, where if you were outgoing and you loved to be like a little bit more in front of the camera and all this stuff, that you automatically thought about acting. I love that it was quick for you, that you decided pretty quickly that it wasn't necessarily acting, that it was journalism that really was the bug. And I think sometimes that confusion takes people off their path a little bit.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Completely.
I think that's like, that can be very easily confused because you're outgoing, because you're beautiful, because this, and you love the arts. But really it was the art of talking to people. Really, it was the art of like telling stories. It was the art of that you truly enjoyed.
The two do bleed into one another.
They really
do. They not? I mean, you do both.
I mean, listen, I've done both. But the reason why I come from that perspective with this story is because I think that I enjoy talking to people, enjoy asking questions, telling stories, really having a voice in conversation and learning, right, about others. Whereas the acting side of it for me, I think I liked it, but this I love. And so if I discovered that earlier, like you had, I think it would be we'd be having a different conversation now.
Yes.
You know, but everything happens in its own time.
It does.
But I think it's interesting that you caught it early. You understood that difference early on.
I did, but that doesn't mean that I still haven't had pangs my entire adult life to just see what is possible.
Wow.
Because that's a whole other thing when you get to, you know, middle of life and things change, and you do see so many people, actors coming to be hosts, more than hosts going to be actors.
This is true.
So I'm like flipping this on its head a little, because if we're getting real honest about things that, you know, what have I never done that I've always wanted to do?
Yeah.
I'd like to go see if I can do that.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? But that's very scary. Again, you bring in the age piece. There's all the reasons that I could tell myself, no, don't go explore that. But even around my kids, they're like, what are you waiting on, Mom? Just go do that.
Oh, I agree.
And my son's even like, because we've had these conversations out loud, because again, I do have a thespian part of me.
Right.
That is what I enjoy. Like, you know, I'm, you know, binging every show there is to binge, you know, and that's how I got on E, actually, was because I was like, I think I can do that. I literally was watching Juliana Rancic on a red carpet, and then, you know, cut 2 years later and I was on that red carpet. And so now I'm kind of like, I think I could do that. And my son was like, he's like, Mom, you have to go out there on live TV and actually put words together and think and use your voice. He's like, I'm pretty sure you could memorize some lines.
That's true.
Not to diminish acting.
No, but it's
I was
true.
like, well, I don't know till I try.
It's a skill set.
Yeah.
It's a skill set. And I think you've crafted and mastered this skill set so much that, yes, I do think that you'll be able to transfer into that.
You do?
Yes,
you do?
1,000%.
You think
but
somebody
I think more importantly, the bigger conversation around this is we as women, right? That's I don't know, that's interesting to me, because we as women, this was a little bug and you're like, no, it never left. You're like, excuse me, Lizzy. No. this bug never left. Like,
Yeah.
it's still here. And so then we start kind of getting to this thing of like, okay, how does life now move so quickly, right? That you find yourself now at 49 and you're like, hey, that bug is still there. Do you take the next step?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And am I paralyzed by fear? Or,
Right.
you know, once we're something, do we always have to be that? And what's my identity and how, you know, how the world sees me? And there's so many different
Well, answer
layers.
these questions. Let's go.
So many
Because
different
now
layers.
let's talk to everybody. Are you paralyzed by fear? And do
Yes.
you feel
Yes, I am.
okay? And how do we get past that? How do you take the next step past the paralyzation of fear?
Yeah.
What would you tell your kids?
Well, they have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Wow. Look at that. Now look at that. Now look at
Dr. Lizzy
that.
Mathis.
Look at that. That's what
Yes.
that I think is what, when we tell each other what we would tell our kids and speak it out loud, if we could only follow the advice
No, you're right.
that we would give as wise mothers to our children.
And then what else do we do? And then I immediately went in my mind to the long list of other to-dos that I have on my list today, right? So then I start making excuses because it's like, yeah, but I do have this other project I am working on that is a journalism project. And then I do have my weekly podcast, and you now know how,
Yes.
like, that's no
It's
joke.
intense.
And then, you know, so then I'm going to, and so then I'll get around to an acting class.
Yeah. Got to jump in.
Maybe that'll be my new child.
Gotta
You know,
jump
maybe
in.
because I'm an empty nester now, that'll be my new child.
I mean, we have so much
Acting.
to talk. This is so true. I want to talk about E for a minute, though, since we're on that. This is a 10-year career you had at E. And listen, anybody who watched E during that time knows exactly who you are. I mean, I would watch you all the time. I was a fan of yours. Like that, I was like, oh my goodness. I love, like, you were just fluid. You were just like so easy, so like on it, so professional, but yet fun, so likable, but yet like, you know, intelligent. It was just like all these really nice, I don't want to say balances, but really nice, like, you know what I mean? Ands, right?
Oh, that's nice.
But for you at E, what was that final moment where you were like, listen, no more. I'm done with this. I cannot do this.
It's interesting because it was December, as we are speaking today, it was December 6 years ago. And it wasn't a moment. In the end, it became many months of inner debate and questioning and soul searching to get to that decision. Earlier in that year, I had been given the new responsibility of a new show. So I was hosting a show called Daily Pop, and then I was on the set of E! News at least 3 days a week, doing both of the shows and working more hours than I had in actually 12 years since I had gotten there.
Wow.
So I'd been there a long time. I'd seen so many different regimes go, different presidents go, different, you know, we were a cable network. Then we were, you know, purchased by NBC Universal. So I'd been through like, you know, 4 high schools of E! You know, I'd been there for a long time. And then a female executive pulled me aside in a closed door meeting and just said, you should know, right? You should know that you're severely underpaid, because my contract was coming up at the end of the year. And so she'd seen me taking on all this extra work, and clearly I knew I was valuable, or they wouldn't have given me more real estate on the network. You know, that's hard to do, even if you've been somewhere, like to get another show and to have another position of value, which I did. So I was surprised when I learned that, and I was a little angered by it. And again, this was 6 years ago when it wasn't as much a part of the conversation as it is today. Now, a lot of people are talking about this issue of disparity in the workplace, but I just thought, you know, I'll get with the team. Well, you know, I got this knowledge. Knowledge is power. We'll ask for what I believe I am worth in the ballpark of Jason Kennedy. I'm fine saying his name now because, you know, it wasn't his fault. It never has been. But he was my counterpart for all intents and purposes. You know, we got there, by the way, the same year. We were very much apples to apples in our level of profile at this big network, right? We kind of came up side by side. Dear friend of mine. Anyway, they said no, and then they said not so much, and then they said sorry, and it was one of those things where we weren't getting anywhere in negotiations. And that's the moment you asked about, the moment that was hard is that I had to go, am I willing to walk away from this? You know, that was the moment. And I was consulting with so many women that, I mean, that was really what fueled me and comforted me and propelled me to make an exit of that magnitude, was because I connected with so many of my idols. Jennifer Lawrence, who had, already had spoken up about, her co-stars being paid an exorbitant amount more than her. And then, Gwyneth has heard me tell the story, and I don't drop names because, by the way, these girls weren't my friends.
Right.
They were just women I admired,
Right.
and they opened their door to me.
And that told the story, yeah.
It did, and they made time for me to come to them to say, this is what I'm going through. What do you think? And they were so supportive. And that really, honestly, I don't know if I didn't have enough really strong women around me to tell me it's okay. You can take a stand and you can do this. I don't know if I would have, honestly.
Right.
Like, that really helped me feel armed with enough support and just knowing it was, at the end of the day, the right thing to do.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Your team, though, because this is what I always wonder. Your team, your management team. When I talk about team, anyone in the entertainment industry has a set of people who are there with hopefully your best interest in mind, but they're your team. So it's the managers, it's the agents, it's the lawyers. Were all of those people supportive in this decision?
To my face. I mean,
Yeah.
By the way, they were all men too.
This is, and most of the time, they are a lot of men around us.
They were supportive. However, I don't know if they believed that I was going to do it. I mean, that was the sense. Like, I'm still with one of them today, and he's my ride or die. And, but yeah, there was a lot of conversation. Like, you sure you want to do this? Because a lot of women do this for free. And by the way, there's about 125-year-olds waiting in the wings to do this for nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And networks know this, right? Like,
Right.
so, I mean, these are all the many variables that go into people's decisions, company decisions, all of that. But they were supportive. I think overall, I would say, yes, they were supportive. And maybe that does speak to experience. And maybe that does speak to my time in the game. And
Right.
maybe that speaks to them hopefully knowing my skill level.
Your worth.
Yeah, my worth overall.
Yeah.
That I would land on my feet. And ultimately, all of us had to say, do I bet on myself? Will I be okay? And the answer ultimately was yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think the courage it takes to take a stance like that, especially in a position that you are very comfortable in. I think that's the biggest thing. It's comfort. You're very comfortable in a position. You're there for 12 years. You're still getting shows. And for you to say, you know what? You're not paying me the same, even just the same, even equal to my counterpart. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, that takes a lot of courage.
Well, thank you. And it was scary. It was, and you don't know. I mean, for anybody taking any kind of leap like that, you don't and can never know how it's going to play out or what the outcome might look like. But for me, I feel like the universe really rewarded me for living that truth. And I knew that I would be, it would be such a disservice to the viewers, to myself, to anybody who had watched all those years to sign another deal, knowing it was like giving out discounts for my work,
Giving you a half off.
giving me a half off sale for the
exactly.
next 3 years. And then going on air every day to do my job. I personally am not built like that. And maybe that, came with age and experience and wisdom and getting more comfortable in my skin, that I was like, I don't want to go to a job every day where I don't feel appreciated, where I don't feel valued, where I'm like bitter about not getting what I deserve. So that at the end, it really just wasn't an option for me. I couldn't live like that.
Were you a mom yet at that point?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was a big piece of it. It was like, hold on, I've told this story before where I've like, my last year, I was, I had to hire like a driver to get my kids to school to be at that new show by 7 a.m. on set every day. Like, I had all these other like expenses and accommodations and things I had to do as a working mother.
Just to make it work.
just to pull it off. That again, sorry guys, but not all the guys have that headache, do they?
Exactly. Exactly. That responsibility. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that is what people don't take into account. Do you think that now time has changed? I mean, not that you know anyone else's contract situation or anything like that, but do you think that just because, listen, to be honest with you, it wasn't cool to be a mom when you were a mom. You know what I mean? When you were starting off as a mom. And we've had this conversation. It wasn't the cool thing to do. All of a sudden, a couple of actresses popped out a couple babies and everybody was like, oh, well, so it's cool to be a mama now. and then that was it. And I think that was kind of like a big shift. But at the time, it was still this kind of like workplace culture where women felt the need to hide the responsibility, the pressure, the conflict that they constantly and daily had to go through as mothers and as women in the workplace. So do you feel like that's a little different now?
Well, the mom thing for sure is different now, I think. Don't you agree? Like, I mean, gosh, that your whole business is based on, right? Okay, Hello. Of course that's different. Thank God. Right? Yeah. But the pay discussion, equal pay discussion is, I think it's improving. I think, again, the women before me that took a stand emboldened me to do the same. And now I've seen that continue to happen. You know, people like Michelle Williams or people, there's been countless cases now where not just in our industry, but in all industries where women are standing up for equal pay. And then in turn, whether or not it's sincerely like some moral obligation by companies, they're doing it because if they don't today, it's not a good look for them, right? Like, exactly. So I do think it's improving. I do think, the transparency piece, we just weren't walking around before asking people, well, what do you make? What do you make? Is this okay? What's the going rate for this job? You know, you're kind of guessing, you kind of, you enter in your experience or all these other pieces to maybe decide or determine what you should be paid. And now, we even have legislation in California where it's you can't be based on what you used to make, and that has to be disclosed. So, the fairness, we're coming to a better playing field, I think, now for all of us.
I just love that you're an advocate on it. You really have devoted a lot of energy, time, and a lot of yourself. I think once you experience this, of using your voice and your platform as a space to shed light on something that was really just fucked up. You know what I mean? Yeah. That honestly women have experienced since the beginning of time.
Right.
But even 10 years ago is not, you're not even 10 years ago. How long has it been?
6.
6 years ago is not that long ago for even you to have, and for you of your like, I don't want to say stature, but of your experience level at that time to even go through that. So I'm happy for that. Like, I'm happy, if nothing else, you're able to shed light on something for the next people to walk through the door.
Thank you. And that is honestly, I feel so fortunate because that became, again, you make a decision like this. I didn't even know if I was going to talk about it publicly. I actually just wrote a kind of like an open letter on my blog to the viewers because remember, I wasn't allowed to say on air why I was leaving. And by the way, not everybody even knew why I was leaving. Even the people we were doing the deal with, you can't threaten, you have to pay me as much as him or else. And there's a lot of litigious stuff going on. Right. So while I alluded to the parity issue as being part of it, like, how can he, I can't say pay me that or else. It's like a blackmail, right? Like, exactly. So, it's inferred, but it wasn't overtly like pay me as much as him or else I will leave. So then when I wrote my blog and like, here's what's up, unequal pay, it was unfair. I had to bounce, and I told my truth. The way people rallied around me and the world rallied, and just viewers and girls and women from all over, wherever you get to eat, like, they were very much a part of the reason I kept fighting, because it was like, oh, now I have this obligation. Now I have this purpose in me to go out and speak about this. They're like, use your reach, use your platform to continue this fight because we can't.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what it became. And
that's absolutely
and I just, again, I felt that, sometimes the darkest parts of your life that feel like really heavy or a burden or unfair or completely tormenting, really can unfold to be one of the most beautiful things ever, because that's what happened for me. Because then I was like, oh, that's what the universe was doing.
You never know.
This was supposed to be like this. I was supposed to be used like this. And for that, I am grateful.
Yeah, you never know. That's the thing. There's no there's no blueprint behind the door. You just got to step through and see what happens.
Yeah.
No, but I do applaud you for that. I really, really, truly do, because I think it's just, it's monumental. I think what you've been able to shed light on. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Lizzy.
But I want to pivot for a minute, because if anyone knows, which they don't, so I'm just going to say it. When I finally knew that I had a connection to you, this was years ago, but I was like, oh my God, I have a connection to Catt. So I was friends, well, not was, but I am friends, acquaintances, knowing, conversation, friendly with, however you want to put it. I'm
dying to know what you're going to say. You're like the build-up. Hold on, let me get a swig of my coffee. I was like, is this an ex-boyfriend? Who are you going to say?
No, it's very...
Who do you got a friend with? Who am I DMing? What?
You already know this.
Okay.
You already know it.
Oh, that. Okay.
So the fact that you have... So with your ex-husband's wife, and so originally, I remember having these conversations, and it felt like you guys were the Brady Bunch. I mean, you guys were this like super connected, everyone's great, and everyone's this, and everyone's BFFs with each other, and blah, blah, blah. So, you have a very strong family dynamic, even within the situation that you guys raise your boys in. And I just love it. I think it's so cool that you guys figured out a way or agreed or whatever it is on a way to coexist in such a beautiful way. And you're such good friends with basically the new chick. Like, you know what I mean? Like the new boo. Like that's like, but tell me how that came about. I mean, not to simplify.
People are like, wait, what?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
is going on?
So break it down for everybody.
Yes.
So I don't mess it up.
Basically, I was consciously uncoupled before Gwyneth Paltrow. Now I've been through 2 times in this episode. I divorced the father of my children. 2007, I believe, was the year. And we actually, I'm pretty sure we decided even before we were both out there dating again in the streets. But I was a child of divorce. He was a child of divorce. The end was obvious. And it wasn't perfect, by the way. I mean, we were on pretty amicable terms after we decided, we're going to depart and dissolve our marriage. But we were like, we can't do this the way our parents did it. Sorry, Mom. But like we knew we wanted to co-parent our children in the healthiest way possible. Right. And again, another one of those unknown territories. You don't know how it's going to look. You don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know how hard it's going to be. But we were very much united in that. And I think it was my son's maybe like 7th birthday or something. And I got a call from Kyle, my ex, and he's like, so there's this girl named Sarah, and
see, I was trying not to drop names, but go ahead. I was trying to be discreet. But
yeah,
go ahead. No, that's all right. Go ahead. Do you. It's your story.
It's my story. And they, it's so much love that now it's like.
It's so much love.
If it weren't love, I might not be
there
talking about. Maybe. Sarah, I've been seeing for a while, and I'd really like to bring her to Austin's birthday party. Are you okay with that?
Okay, that was nice.
It was like a respectful move. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, you know what? Okay. It's very hard to hear after you divorce someone. And we'd been together since college. We were college sweethearts. We'd been together 12 years, married for 8. And, there's a part of me where, that just like hurts inside, right? You're like, and she has a name. But then
she has a name. And
I
she
knew
breathes.
Right? Her name is Sarah. Of course it's Sarah,
She's perfect.
But in that moment, I really do remember it being so clear. I was like, well, he could either have a different flavor of the month all year long and like running through like new women or something.
Yeah.
But he seems to have found someone that's important to him. And by the way, for the kids, I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
So bring her on over. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it was that straightforward for me. And I remember my girlfriends were like, oh, she's coming to the party. Oh my God. All this, it was just like, oh, and I was kind of like, this calm came over me. And of course I was a little nervous, and I remember like looking at her and I was like, she's walking around with my husband, the father of my kids. And then the moment came because it was time to sing happy birthday and cut the cake. Mm-hmm. And she walked over to me and she said, is there anything I can help you with?
Wow.
A house full of people, kitchen full of people, 50 kids, adults, whatever. And I was like, I'll cut the cake, you scoop the ice cream.
Wow.
And that was when our union, like our friendship, our partnership, our co-parenting started. Now, I wouldn't have known in that moment that they were going to then get married. And now, here we are cut to 12 years later or whatever. Right. But good on her. And, love wins. I'll always say that. And I know it's difficult for so many different people, but it was a beautiful birth of what has become a really, really pretty stellar co-parenting situation.
Yeah, I mean, are you kidding me? But, listen, that comes from, I think, also the desire to put the kids first. It comes from a selflessness from you, though, or from both parties, right? But you in this situation, of, like you said, also just saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to put my ego, I'm going to put my jealousy, I'm going to put all those little emotions that I'm feeling aside and say, hey, this is best for him, this is best for the kids, and go forward. But I just think it's beautiful that you and Sarah are like kumbayas. Like y'all be kikiing. Y'all like, hey Kiki, hey.
I know.
And I think it's really sweet because I'm sure for the boys in that environment, it was just so much healthier.
Yes. Yes. I mean, listen, hate, resentment, pettiness, it's toxic.
Right.
And there are parts of myself I have always worked on. And I guess maybe that served me in that moment because I had been doing all my journals. I've been doing all my self-help books. I've been, I practice that energetically. I always have. I've just been that way. And so in those moments, then it shows up and serves you in the right way because thank God, and she's such a beautiful person. The other piece of that is for everybody who has modern day families where it's, complicated and you got divorced and all these things, it takes one bad apple to screw that up for everybody.
You're right.
And
so
to Sarah's credit, she knows Kyle and I are tight. She knows we have decades of history together. She knows I'm the mother of his kids, but she is confident enough in herself. Kyle would still take a bullet for me. And she knows that. And she's fine with that. This is her man. This is their new chapter. They now have a beautiful daughter. And I consider her one of like my best friends. We've even maybe once or twice commiserated about Kyle.
I love this though.
She's like, oh my God, if he does this, I'm like, I told you, girl.
Look, I consider her one of my best friends. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
like that's true. Wild to me. It's not wild. I mean, when I say wild, I don't mean like, oh my God, that's shocking. I mean it like that's wild in such a beautiful way. Like it's so wonderful, I think, to be able to get to a level and to be able to have someone come in your life like Sarah, because I know Sarah too. And I think she's always been so sweet, so wonderful, so kind. I mean, honestly, I couldn't say anything but that about her. And so I remember hearing that and being like, wow, y'all figured it out. Wow, y'all figured it out.
It is such a gift. It is such a gift for the boys. I mean, we were just on a group text because we're always on like a family group text, Kyle and her and me. Not Greg yet. Greg isn't on. That's my boyfriend. That's right. He's not on that group text yet. But just the other day, Orion, who's my freshman in college, sends the group text a picture of like this mark on his hand. And he's like, should I be worried about this mark on my hand? And I'm like, send more pictures. We're like parenting, through text, from when your kids parenting. Are miles away.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'm going to take these pictures to her dad, who's a doctor. And like, we were just all hands on, being parents as a group. And and in that moment, I just laughed. It's not lost on me is my point. Like, I'm still very grateful every day that
this is the unit that you've created.
It is.
Greg will jump on board. Don't worry. He'll be added to the group text soon enough. I want to talk about the boys, and I want to talk about you and your decision to have plastic surgery. I want to talk about that. And so from what I understand, you decided to talk to the boys about it first. One, I want to say this. What even made you say, this is something that I want to do? And two, Second question. Why talk to them beforehand?
Lizzy, you journalist. I'm watching him like, you just work, girl.
I'm like, look, I learned from you.
No, I'm just watching you work, and like I'm like
all those years watching you
because I'm so used to doing that, and now I'm just watching you do it, and it's good. You got so good.
Look, it's so funny though, because
when you pull out a 1 and a 2.
But when I did your podcast, I was like, I'm taking notes. I can't wait till you come on mine. I can't wait.
1. Okay, why did I want to get a facelift? I had, by the way, a facelift, a neck lift, and a blepharoplasty, which is
break it down.
The eyelid, as one gets older, starts to sag and can be like a hooded eye. You know, you've heard those references. And I started in my mid-40s doing a lot of content specifically focused on middle-aged women and what it means to kind of navigate this season of life. So I had my weekly podcast, but I started this video series called Midlife and Me. And it's really been a kind of journey sharing with other women what this feels like. Perimenopause, hot flashes, bloating, your hormones being completely out of whack. Should you take hormone replacement therapy? Should you not? What's good for us? What helps us sleep better? All of these kind of things. And you can't talk about those subjects without then also talking about the vanity piece of like aging can suck, and looking in the mirror not recognizing yourself can suck, and seeing more lines and wrinkles and saggy jowls. For some, and power to them, might look at that and go, I look more beautiful than I've ever looked. For me, I was just like, why do I look tired when I look in the mirror? Why does my face, like the corners of my mouth are going down? I look sad. When I'm not sad, I'm happy. So I was having all of this kind of internal conflict, and out of just my journalistic curiosity, I was like, I wonder what I can do about this. Now, I was no stranger to some Botox, but I was like, on a bigger scale, what can I do? What do I want to do? And should I do? And so I took my small audience of this subscribers to this video series along with me to see my plastic surgeon.
Wow.
And that is when the idea was born, because I was like, well, what do I do about this? And oh my God, every time you can see my age in my neck. And it was just, it wasn't a self-loathing. I love myself.
Yes. Yes, you do.
I love myself.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to get there.
Right. That's right. You've earned that. You've earned that.
I mean, we all have maybe different versions of ourselves, or times when we're feeling better in our skin than other times. But it wasn't that I was like self-hating, so I wanted to change and put on a new mask. It was just really kind of like, what's available to me?
Right.
And so Dr. Kim said, well, to fix that, you really kind of need a facelift, but you can't really do that without the neck lift. And then while we're at it, since you're going to be under, you could do your eyes. So I was like, oh. So that was the decision.
What allowed you to be open on this journey, though? Because I'm sure a lot of women do it. I mean, it's not like a big secret. I mean, a lot of women do it. This isn't like oh my God, so taboo. It's not, we're past that. It's a lot of people choose to do it silently, though, and kind of in their own personal way. You decided to make it very public and say, hey, this is my journey. This is where I am. I don't hate myself. I love myself, but this is something I'm choosing to do. Why? Why be public about it?
I'd like to say it's just how I'm built, but I don't know. I'm so, another tattoo, truth. I have the word truth on my arm. Like truth is everything to me. I can't tell a lie. I mean, ask any man who's ever dated me. You cheat on me? That's deceit and betrayal. I don't operate that way.
Yeah.
Tell me the truth.
That's right.
You don't want to be with me anymore? You want to go out and see somebody else? Tell me the truth. I just love truth. And I just think it's the most important virtue.
Right.
And so when I was doing it, I was just like, let me take you with me. Maybe my experience can enlighten other women. And again, I'll be a subject for them, who is considering it, who is contemplating it, who wants to know the good, the bad, and ugly of what it might be like. Why not share? Why not enlighten other women and provide them with information that will help them, should they consider this for themselves? It's a very personal
criticism,
decision.
though? What about the critiques? What about that? I love this idea of helping women. I really do.
But people talk a lot of shit.
But like even like the food thing that we talked about. I mean, it was just something simple as that. People have opinions and people talk shit. What about that? What about the naysayers?
You know, it's that ego piece again where I am really detached from caring. I mean, sorry, but I mean, not sorry, because it took me a long time to get there.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry,
That's
not
right.
sorry. It took me a long time to get there. I care less. I can't say I don't care because that would also be lying, right? Because of course we care what people think of us, but it wasn't a decision I made lightly, and I had and continue to do so much internal work that this exterior piece for me, like I could justify it. You know, I felt like it was the right decision. So if people want to critique that, that's okay. They don't have to get a facelift.
Yeah.
And I do understand the conversation, the bigger conversation about, you know, surgery in general and, you know, a whole generation of girls growing up doing that and how that, I think that's a little different of a conversation because, you know, young girls today are literally full on changing themselves, their whole face, what they look like.
Before they're even developed.
Before it's even finished, right? Like, and that is scary and that is very concerning. And if I had daughters, I'm sure, you know, I can't imagine what it is like to go through that with young girls today. But as it pertains to aging and just knowing like the science and what's available, I felt pretty darn good going into it. And I have to say the results I love. And
you look damn good.
Well, thanks.
Well, you've always looked good, but you look damn good.
Well, thanks.
You
and
really
it's not
do.
even done yet. You know, it takes a year.
No
We're at
way.
the 6-month mark.
No way.
So
I didn't realize this was only 6 months ago.
It kind of like, yeah, it was just, it's like, so I am like a little, I still feel a little swollen.
You
and
don't
even
look
my ears
swollen.
a little like, you know.
You must have just a tiny head because you don't look swollen.
No,
you don't look
thank you.
swollen.
No, but you did ask me about my boys.
And the boys. So I heard that you told the boys at Disneyland. And these are grown boys. It's not like you went to like little boys. Your boys are grown. They are like living their lives.
Yeah.
But yet you still felt like the need and like I will even say the respect, right? To tell them, but at Disneyland.
It's really funny.
I want to know, yes, why Disneyland? But more importantly, why did you feel the need to like mention this to them and tell them beforehand? Or get their blessing, I guess.
Well, we're so close. Oh, I love my boys. Just, I mean, gosh, this is the mom show. This is mom code. Like
right.
everybody knows who's listening if you're a parent. Like, oh, like these are my biggest treasures of all time. So of course I consider them. But I mean, the easiest answer is that you get this surgery, you're laid out for 2 weeks. And by the way, you're in bandages, your face is swollen, you look like an alien. So there was no way I could close my door off from them for 2 weeks because we were all still living at home at the time.
Oh,
so this was
right.
even just 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So number one, I had to give them a heads up because it's major. It's a major surgery. The Disneyland piece happened because, again, this year for me has been so much transition. I had my youngest graduate from high school. I had my oldest move out. He was on his way to move out for the first time. He's in college, but had lived at home. And I was about to move in with my boyfriend. Right. So all of this change was happening. Then I was changing my face. Like all of these things were percolating. And as a kind of final homage to one of our traditions growing up was always going to Disneyland, at least once a year. Like we loved Disneyland in my house. And so as Orion was graduating, I was like, should we go to Disneyland one more time? And that had nothing to do with the facelift, but they were like, yeah, let's go one more time. And so it was just the three of us. And we were like in line for, I don't know what, Haunted Mansion or something. And I thought, well, is this a time where I should drop on him that I'm about to do a facelift? And so those long lines came in handy and we got into the big discussion about it. And you know, I'm sure I was kind of tiptoeing around it a little bit. And it's funny because both of my boys are very different. And Orion, the youngest, was like, okay, you know, people do that. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Is that what you want to do? That? Okay. You know, he's just very like, all right. And then my oldest is my deep analytical baby, very, very feeling. And he was more concerned. You know, it wasn't that he was concerned about like the physical, medical piece of like, that's dangerous because of course there are risks involved with that. But he was like, why do you want to do that? You know, he really wanted to hear from
For
me why that was
you.
important to me.
That's right. Like, why do you want to do that, Mom?
Yeah. Do you feel like you need to do that? Because you don't need to do that. And, you know, so it was like a more tender conversation.
Right.
But, you know, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it to this moment. If they were really against it, would I still have done it?
Interesting.
Because, you know, you said get their blessing. And I was thinking, well, I wasn't really trying to get their blessing. I was just letting them know.
What if they had said no?
But you're right. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they were like super against it, what that would have meant for me at the time. I didn't really think about that.
You know, you're a three unit there.
Yeah.
My mom used to always say, me and my three. She had 3 kids, me and my 3. So she would be the same. She would always kind of run decisions kind of like by us, you know, not for our opinion, by no means for us to give her the yes or no, but just to like give us an upfront, kind of like a heads up. Hey, heads up. This is happening. Hey, heads up. This is what I plan on doing. Hey, heads up. Like, you know, that kind of thing. Yes. And it feels like you operate very similarly with your boys. The communication is what I hear. What I'm hearing all the time through mothers is, especially older, when you have older kids and as they get teenagers and all this stuff, right? Mine are still little.
Yes.
But communication is key.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to build.
Everything.
Communication.
Everything. And the more you talk to them in these moments, like what do you hear from every parent as their kids get older and then they become teenagers, and then, you know, a lot of kids keep secrets, right? Or they hide things from their parents. And like that was something I never wanted. So as long as we are establishing these wonderful practices of communication and we do our part, you have to at least hope that they're going to feel that space is there for them. So when they need to come to you, you'll be
available.
There too.
That's
available.
Right. You're available.
Available.
That's right. Which is hard to do.
I know.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm taking that knowledge from me with young kids to you with grown kids. I'm taking all that knowledge. I'm going to be texting you and asking you.
You know what? This is the smartest podcast ever, because you can just
Let me
get
tell
all
you.
this information from all your guests, and then you just can create a manual for everybody, all moms everywhere.
That's the beauty in it, though. There is no manual.
I know.
There's no manual because there's not a one-stop shop.
That's right.
As we know, everybody's different and everyone parents differently, which is the beauty of the Cool Mom Code, guys. The beauty of the cool. You know what? I just want to end it on this, though. I just want to know the people in line at Disneyland with you, because you know, girl, you were not the only one in line. So the people in line at Disneyland, that's what I just keep thinking, like as they're overhearing your conversation. I think that's funny. But listen, thank you, Catt. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your openness, your honesty, your transparency. But most of all, I think just sharing a part of you that is so grounded. I have, you know, listen, we had the podcast at your house on your podcast, which was amazing. And it was the first time that you and I really shared space. But you're so warm. You really are. And I think that the decisions you've made for yourself have resonated through women and young girls everywhere. And I really want to give you your flowers for that, because you deserve them. So thank you, Catt. Thank you for inspiring me. And thank you for coming on today.
I received those flowers. Thank you.
You are welcome.
The feeling is so mutual.
Look, I will receive it too then. I will take that. I will take that. I love you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Lots of love.